Welcome everybody to our webcast today, Lessons Learned in 2020 and Where Managed Security is Heading in 2021. Before we get started today, I wanted to wish everyone a happy Data Privacy Day. Data Privacy Day is an international event. It occurs every year on January 28th. The purpose of Data Privacy Day is to raise awareness and promote privacy and data protection best practices. It is currently observed in the US, Canada, Israel, and 47 European countries. So now that we have your input on how people are celebrating today, let's get you to today's agenda. First of all, we're going to kick things off today with the president of Neturion, Ananth. He'll give you a current state of the union, reviewing what he saw in 2020 and what he sees coming up in 2021. After that, we'll take a look at some of the business changes that occurred and see how those will change or if they will disappear as we move forward. Then we'll get some insight onto what kind of cybersecurity investment you can expect in 2021 from each of our panelists. And we'll finish up with an overview along with some questions and answers. So before I get started, let me introduce our guests. Ananth is the president of Neturion and one of the co-creators of our Event Tracker solution. Guy Cunningham is the senior vice president of channel sales and alliances and has his finger on the pulse of where the cybersecurity channel is headed in 2021. And Saraswathi Ramanna is a senior technical engineer with Neturion. She can provide hands-on, in-the-trenches insights on what has happened and what we can expect for cybersecurity. So before I get to my first question, Ananth and Guy, can you remind our attendees who Neturion is?
Thank you, David. Good day, everybody. Thank you for taking half an hour of your time for this topic. We are a managed services provider that has built our own platform and deliver it to both the direct customers as well as partners. The slide, I won't read it out, but our governing philosophy is that the true scarce resource is cybersecurity skill. There is a lot of technology out there, some of it even very, very capable, but then it doesn't matter what you have, it's what you do with it that counts. And so we are an outcome-driven organization looking to improve, enhance, supplement your existing IT staff with specific security outcomes built on platform that we have spent a long time building. Guy, what's your view on this?
Yeah, Ananth, you're absolutely correct. The true scarce resource is cybersecurity talent today. And over the last 4 years since we've launched our channel program, we've experienced tremendous growth because our partners lack those resources just like our end user customers do. And today we have more than 500 MSPs and MSSPs using Event Tracker to protect their own and their customers' environments. And the program has won several awards from CRN, and our solutions have been named to MSSP Alert's top 250 list, earning the number 19 spot in 2020's list. So the solutions that we're providing and the services that we're providing absolutely are addressing our customers, one of their customers' biggest gaps, which is that cybersecurity talent.
So the slide that's coming up tells you what the approach that is foundational for us. And it is built around a core platform where we have technology including SIM, which is security information and event management, as well as endpoint protection. In 2021, security must be adaptive. You can't just be thinking detect and response. There is a new game in town in prevention. And of course, if you can predict that that you are going to get attacked and cut it off before it even gets to you, that's ideal. So this is known as detect and respond, supplemented by prevent and prediction. Those are the security controls. That is the green layer in the middle, and then the real value is in the managed service layer, because as we said, the tip of the iceberg, which is frequently visible to buyers, is the technology. But the real magic is making it mean something, making it provide actionable outcome. What does this mean to me? What should I do with this alert? And if I don't do it, what may be the outcome? So that's the heart of the approach that we've taken. So in 2020, it was a disruptive year for those of us in IT. Obviously, we had to scatter from the office because of the pandemic. And so there were three primary trends. There were a lot of trends, mini trends, sub trends, but there were three that really stood out in 2020. First and foremost, we had to become remote rather quickly. And the notion of home, this is really, we say WFH, but it really has become WFA for work from anywhere. Because home, I suppose, is where the heart is. In our case, we had an employee that relocated to Cuba because that's where his home was. And that really changed things for us on the network in terms of geofencing and allowed. So one big trend we saw was employees became remote, necessitated by the pandemic. And this was true pretty much across all verticals, pretty much across all global locations. The second trend, and it continues to this day, is the need for contactless interaction. Whether you're going to the DMV or you're picking up something from the curb at the restaurant for takeout, or you're checking yourself out at the grocery line, or you're interacting with an agency or the bank, customers have preferred contactless interaction in 2020. Last but not the least, the third major trend was the acceleration of cloud adoption. Indeed, that was reflected in the earnings that Microsoft posted for fourth quarter, where they saw a 25% bump, mostly driven by Azure. And they are symptomatic, I would say, of a lot of cloud providers. As we had resources that were on premise, it was clear that those days of being able to go there, tend for it, own that iron are past. So in 2020, these are the big three trends that the market showed us. And of course, as vendors, we had to respond to them. And so if you were tethered to the office network via an appliance, you had to think about how you became agile, how you became mobile. If you had equipment on premise and that all disappeared into the cloud, well, what is the implication of this? How do you do access? What's the new perimeter? What's the network topology look like? So the vendors responded to these three trends as well. And here we are in the start of 2021, and what do we see looking forward? Well, first and foremost, because we all scattered so rapidly back to our work from anywhere locations, IT was really focused on business continuity. Security, compliance, tightening the bolts was a secondary consideration. After all, if you couldn't even operate the business, what else were you going to focus on? And so we maybe made some compromises in the way in which we were able to get people back. And so there's going to be some rethinking, reimagining, relooking, tightening of the gaps, those kinds of things. The other outcome is that the network topology, now that it has changed, it's going to be a permanent change. You know, it was already dissipating anyway. It's not like the firewall at the edge of the company network was a well-defined, sharp perimeter. Already Salesforce had taken over, already Office 365 had taken over. And because the cloud adoption is accelerating, maybe even other applications that you consider critical to your business might have gone to the cloud. So the question then becomes, what exactly is the perimeter look like? And the answer is the perimeter is probably really identity, who you are, how you sign in, what your authentication is, more than the network edge, you know, the so-called firewall at the edge of the network guarding your LAN versus the rest of the world. It's probably not that. It's probably more like who you are and how you signed in. Last but not the least, if you are in a business that is subject to auditing, auditors have taken notice of the fact that the network topology has changed and are now asking the questions about how exactly is it that you're satisfying the regulations with the new network. It has happened to us. Our SOC, our data center, is ISO 27001 certified, PCI DSS vendor certified. And as we've gone through the changes in our network topology, because our employees are remote as well now, much more so than they ever were, the auditor is asking the hard questions. How are you doing DLP? What are you doing for two-factor authentication? How is access control granted into the network? How are you protecting against unexpected logins? The same person logging in New York and then 15 minutes later in San Francisco, which is geographically impossible. Will you be able to find that, detect that? Now, these are questions, honestly, that they didn't ask in previous years, but because the network diagram has changed, all of these things are in play now. David?
Thanks so much, Ananth. Sarah, as Ananth noted, the work from anywhere isn't going anywhere. I mean, I left my office March 9th, 2020, and I haven't been back since. So what are we learning from this, and what's your outlook for 2021 in regards to work from anywhere?
Absolutely, David. You're right. The work from home is not going anywhere. This is not just true for our company, but a large number of customers that we've been working with as well. Most of them have been scrambling to get things running. Like Ananth said, business continuity has been their primary focus. But with that, there's an increased security gap. Many have sent home routers and firewalls with their employees. They've implemented some sort of EDR solutions to guard the BYOD devices. They've implemented a VPN or enhanced their existing VPN to allow too many connections. And also brought in a number of new either the infrastructure or tools like MFA. But the big question is, how do you now get visibility into all of this data? It's not easy to look at every router, every firewall, every endpoint that's spread globally. Like Ananth was talking about, your employee could be in Cuba, in Kashmir, somewhere in Kansas. There's no controlling or stopping some employee from working from somewhere. But at the same time, visibility is really the key here. So there's an increasing need to monitor everything from your data center to those remote work locations. It's not just the antivirus. You have an antivirus on the workstations, the endpoints, and you're done with it. You're good. You don't need to worry about it anymore. That's not the case. You really need end-to-end visibility from those endpoints that are at home, their wireless connections, to all of the activity that goes on in the back office in your data center. So that's where the biggest challenge is. So there's that increasing need to cover end-to-end monitoring, and that's where most of the focus now is going to be in 2021. How to bring all of that data, how to monitor them, how to centralize them, and get an overview of everything that's going on, not just the data center network, but across the globe.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Sarah. Guy, how has this work from anywhere affected the channel?
I think Sarah did a great job of summarizing that. I'll repurpose a lot of what she said. The channel partners that we work with, their first and most important task was to make sure that those employees that left the office were able to get access to the applications and access to the data that they needed access to. And security and control was really a secondary aspect. And we're smack in the middle of that now. Partners that we work with are understanding that a single endpoint security solution on a work from home device is not enough anymore. As we've all seen the statistics, up to 70% of breaches start at an endpoint. And I think we're going to be surprised with the number of breaches that start at devices that are, work from home devices. And so we're starting to see the defense in depth concept that used to be really applied principally to critical infrastructure, data center infrastructure. We're seeing that defense in depth philosophy applied all the way to the endpoint, those work from home devices. And it's it's something that's going to take some strategy, and it's something that's going to take some effort to implement. But like Sarah said, the need to monitor those devices doesn't go away just because they went to a home office. And so, in addition to, in addition to applying those coverages and controls and protections across the entire network, wherever the device lives, we're also seeing partners really embracing those vendors that understand the pricing models that are necessary to be successful in this work from home. Pricing based upon events per second or amount of data are difficult to manage and difficult to predict. And so we're seeing those vendors that have per device or per employee types of pricing models really take root and see a lot of success.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for reiterating, and thanks for bringing those examples in there. Ananth, we've seen a lot of movement with endpoints. I work from home here in St. Louis, but just last weekend I was working in Indianapolis at my son's volleyball tournament. With all these movement of endpoints, how has this affected the security of these endpoints?
Yeah, because the network topology is so different now, employees are mobile. Therefore, the identity really becomes the new perimeter. It also says that your security must be mobile as well and follow the employee rather than be tethered to the office network as in years past. So some of the lessons from 2020, if you continue to depend upon legacy endpoint protection, then its shortcomings in face of the new kinds of attacks that are not so prevalent is becoming more and more obvious. Obfuscation, evasion techniques, methods of living off the land, fileless techniques, all of this defeat, the legacy endpoint protection. And so you should be thinking about that. Looking forward in 2021, the bad guys have understood that the soft underbelly is in fact the endpoint. I mean, simply there are so many more of them than there are servers. And once they get in, once they're able to get a toehold, they can spread laterally and get into your network. So they're always looking for, if you will, the weakest link. And it's often a non-technical person, one that can maybe be socially engineered, one that maybe whose protections aren't the same as they are up at the data center as their way in. So you need to think about the endpoint being under assault and think about how you're going to defend it, especially because it's now no longer just limited to the office. The other wake-up call was toward the tail end of last year, and this is the SolarWinds episode. It's unfolding. It continues to unfold. The enormity, the magnitude of the attack is still not fully understood. But giants of cybersecurity, people that have invested, a lot of money, a lot of technology, and every conceivable defense were breached, and were breached in ways that they didn't know. The attackers were able to lay silent, make off with valuable assets for months at a time. What it tells you, frankly, is that this is a whole of network problem, not just an endpoint problem. We talked about endpoint a lot, in the last 5 or 10 minutes, but just endpoint by itself really doesn't cut the mustard. So in order to think about outlook for 2021, think beyond just the endpoint. Certainly endpoint is important. From an end user perspective, that is to say our customer perspective, we really do need to think about reimagining the network and think about building in this time, not bolting on security. I mean, the statement goes that you never want to waste a good crisis. You finally have the C-suite guys where you want them listening to you, asking for your input, prepared to juggle the budget in order to satisfy your requirements, which you've said for a long time is true, but they've never really been able to pay you attention because they're focused on growth, focused on 20 other imperatives. Now it's your turn, and you want to make the most of your opportunity. If you're a service provider, your customer is looking to you for this kind of advice. This is your chance to become that trusted security advisor, to have a voice at the table when those decisions are made, and they're anxiously seeking you out. So this is a chance to shine. This is a chance to grab the brass ring, as it were, and have at it.
All right, Guy, as Ananth said, for the service providers, this is a chance for them, seize that brass ring. What value do you see this benefiting the channel as well as the end customers?
That's a big question, David. I think I'd like to go back to the concept of endpoint security. Obviously, it's important, and it's something that everybody has on their machines. But I think what we're finding through the latter half of 2020, and we anticipate to continue in 2021, is that having a good endpoint security solution is not enough. You know, we talked about it on the previous slide that defense in depth and monitoring everything is important, but the adversaries that we're dealing with are well-funded, and they have more people at the keyboard than we have people watching our alerting systems, watching our monitoring systems. And the technologies that are typically available today, whether it's a legacy antivirus solution or what was commonly called the next-gen endpoint protection, they're good, but they're not good enough anymore. The approaches and the entry points that these adversaries have been able to exploit are increasing in their number and variety, and they're moving beyond the capabilities of the next-gen machine learning solutions that are out there. And so one of the things that we anticipate seeing in 2021 is an increasingly rapid move towards true artificial intelligence solutions that are not limited to a specific type of file that they're paying attention to, but rather are looking holistically at hundreds of file types. And the automation and the efficacy that are available through what we're calling third generation AI endpoint solutions is tremendous. The other thing that what managed service providers are finding is that they used to view endpoint security as a set it and forget it type of technology. Install it, turn it on, and it does its thing. However, in order to get a high degree of efficacy, they have to put up with a fairly high degree of false positives. And actually managing those false positives, chasing them down, adding files and applications to the allow list or the block list is a time-consuming and cumbersome effort that most MSPs are not investing enough time into because they don't have the people. So one of the things that we're looking forward into 2021 is embedding a managed service that includes endpoint security as well as our foundational event tracker products. And the goal there is to continue to help our partners take advantage of efficiencies gained from the amount of expertise that we have managing these disparate technologies. So managing endpoint security, the game has changed in 2020. It's no longer set it and forget it. It's something that has to be actively managed. And most MSPs are wrapping their arms around that today.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So Ananth, in 2020, NetSharing embedded MITRE in our platform. Can you share with us why and what you see coming in 2021 in regards to MITRE?
Yes, the more than MITRE, it's of course a company. You are no doubt referring to the attack framework, which is one of their projects, and it's become really one of the cornerstones of cyber defense now. The attack framework from the MITRE Corporation is in fact an encyclopedia. They have taken the trouble to document all the different tactics and techniques that are commonly observed by different attack vectors, including the most recent SolarWinds one. They in fact updated their attack framework only yesterday to cover that. And it serves as a good reference point and a common vocabulary between vendors. For buyers, this allows them to get a sense of their coverage of all the tactics and all of the techniques that attackers can use. How are they protected? Which products do they have? What services do they have? What processes do they have that helps them to cover that that kind of thing? So you can get better at threat response, and then for us as vendors, we can speak a common language. We can have an area of specialization within that framework, because he who tries to be all things to all people winds up being nothing to nobody. So we are very focused on the areas where we can add value, recognizing that the attack framework is a very broad framework. For 2021, it's clear that this is going to continue to be one of the focal points. There have been other attempts at the past, but MITRE being a nonprofit corporation funded by the US government with a really high degree of comprehensiveness, this is going to continue to be a central resource. There are supplementing resources for sure, and it can be that you take it and adopt it in your own style. But threat hunting, both the process, the discipline, as well as the reporting of it, is going to continue to be really heavily influenced by this attack framework. Are you looking to benefit from this? Well, you should first of all absorb what this framework really means, what it's offering, and then make sure that you are able to use it within your risk assessment, that you're able to understand where the gaps are in the defenses that you're mounting, and then get providers that can help you with this methodology.
All right. Saraswathi, how does MITRE benefit the SOC and the technical teams, and how are our customers reacting to it?
I mean, anyone involved in incident response will completely agree that time is of essence. Whether you're searching through those indicators of compromise, trying to understand the impact, or you're just reading it out or as a false positive, it's of utmost importance to get it done quickly. To that end, MITRE attack framework has significantly reduced that time that the SOC spends on combing through those logs, running a number of queries to weed out false positives, zero in on the IOCs, and then communicate with customers. So that's been the biggest advantage. By incorporating MITRE attack framework in their incident response workflow, SOC has been able to map out the behavioral pattern. There could be a single incident that triggers their workflow. It could be a login failure, an executable with an unknown hash, an unsafe hash that they saw that triggered the incident response. But once they're on that MITRE attack framework, it gives them a complete map of the overall behavioral pattern, the entire attack vector. And that really helps them out in identifying what those the means by which any kind of attacker is infiltrating into the network. Are they executing some commands, or they're doing some file share, exchanging packets of data through DNS queries? Anything and everything is mapped on that attack framework, and that really is the biggest benefit. Typically, the EDRs will look for a single hash, a signature. It could be a rule that did not match. And those rules, signatures, and hashes can vary from malware to malware. So it's really critical to see what is the behavior that's done once you identify those type of triggers. You saw some type of an unknown hash, unsafe hash, or unknown behavior. Now what next? What we have seen with any type of malware is that behavioral pattern remains the same. Whether it was triggered by a phishing attack, a login failure through an RDP loophole, once the attacker is inside the network, that behavior is the same. There are some CNC connections. There is a need to understand the network. and infiltrate within the network or access data. So those are the type of behaviors that get mapped onto that MITRE ATT&CK dashboard, and that really helps out the SOC teams in identifying it.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. And Guy, what are you hearing regarding the MITRE ATT&CK framework amongst the channel folks that you've spoken with?
Yeah, MITRE's getting a lot of press. I mean, there's a lot of discussion around it, but what we're hearing from our partners is that it's almost, it's become a buzzword that they don't know if it carries any value when it's being spoken about by a vendor. So let me kind of peel that back a little bit. I think everybody understands that the MITRE ATT&CK framework is, like Ananth said, an encyclopedia of the tactics and techniques, a common knowledge database of those tactics and techniques that attackers use to get into a network. But if you look at them, I think there's over 140 individual tactics and techniques. There's probably subcategories under that, and if you try and build a manual matrix to leverage that common knowledge database, it's overwhelming. It's impossible to do, and so you have to rely upon your technology vendors. And what that means is that when a vendor says that they've incorporated the MITRE ATT&CK framework into their product, you need to understand how that really is implemented and how it benefits you as a service provider. What we've done is we've incorporated that capability, that common knowledge database into our product in a way that enables our partners to threat hunt as simply as our SOC can threat hunt. Our SOC uses a lot more tools than just the MITRE, but leveraging that MITRE ATT&CK framework within inside of Event Tracker, our partners can do proactive threat hunting without having to be a cybersecurity analyst. It simplifies and enables a non-specialist to go in and be proactive in protecting their environments. Like Sarah was saying, those indicators of compromise, when it's straightforward and your firewall or your IDS or your endpoint protection throws an alert, you know where to go look. But in the absence of those obvious alerts, what our MITRE ATT&CK capability provides our partners is the ability to go look for those threads that lead up to an indicator of compromise. They can find it before it becomes a breach. And just like our SOC is taking advantage of it, we empower our customers and our partners to take advantage of it as well. So the end result is that our partners don't have to know the details, the depth of the MITRE ATT&CK framework. They can rely upon the tool set to do a lot of that understanding for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sarah, as Guy mentioned, the tool set and what it can do, can you give us some insight into this real life example of how the MITRE ATT&CK framework fought and won against ransomware?
Yeah, this one, the one that you have up on the screen, is a really good example. What I remember with this scenario was our SOC saw a number of priority 1 alerts that were triggered because there was an unsafe hash and unknown hash that was executed on some of the endpoints. And that triggered our SOC to go and look at the MITRE dashboard. Once they were on the MITRE dashboard, like I said earlier, it showed them a number of behaviors that they shouldn't expect to see on a daily basis. What they saw was a pattern of behaviors, like there were some indications of doing some type of network crawls, shadow copy deletes, files that were copied, deleted, file permissions that were changed. So when you put them all together, it stitches together the story and then shows you how the attack is progressing. It really helped helped our SOC identify the endpoint that triggered all of this chain of events, and reach out to the end customer within a few minutes, let them know. The biggest benefit here is, like I said, is the time. If you now think about it, with everyone working from home, you can no longer just go down 2 floors and unplug a laptop. That's no longer the case. If your employees in Cuba, Kansas, wherever they are, you really need to reach out to them and have them unplug, have them disconnect and not be on the network spreading the infection. So it's all the more imperative that we look at these patterns, identify them quickly, and then react to them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks so much, Sarah. I appreciate that insight into this. Guys, so we're seeing a lot of technology. We've heard a lot about technology, and everybody sees that all the time. But technology is not what we need. It's what we need, but it's, you know what I mean, in terms of services are more important or just as important as the technology. So can you give us some insight into why they're so critical to cybersecurity?
Well, sure, absolutely. If I had to ask a question to tee this up, for our audience, if they had to answer what was the most pressing challenge in cybersecurity today, what would it be? And what we see and what a majority of our partners see is that it's not finding an effective technology. There's thousands of vendors willing to sell you their technology. The most pressing challenge is the people. And the problem is that there's not enough of them. And even if we could pay all of our cybersecurity staff, minimum wage, we wouldn't have enough people to fill the available positions. And so that's one reason why we've tried to make our technology as accessible as possible, but that's also one reason why we've embedded or baked our managed services into our offerings. And this problem rolls down not just from customers having a lack of access to resources, but even the service providers that those customers rely upon to manage their infrastructure have limited access to resources. Finding and keeping and retaining and training people is a perpetual problem. And so we continue to see that technology is important, but making it operational, making the technology operational with people and process is as important or more so than just having an effective technology. And that's why we're seeing so many managed service providers rapidly moving into enhancing their cybersecurity skill sets and their offerings. And most of the successful ones that we work with do so by leveraging partnerships, leveraging companies that have expertise in those areas that they don't. There's a strong trend towards co-management, partnership among partners to deliver services to customers. And so every one of our partners recognizes that technology is important, but it's just, as this slide says, it's just the tip of the iceberg.
That's right. And Ananth, as Guy said, we're seeing co-management, we're seeing a rise in managed services. Can you let us know why?
2 words: skill shortage.
Mm-hmm.
The aforementioned from Guy.
Right.
That's really what's driving it. It's not an absence of technology. We've got that coming out of our years and then some. But getting outcome from it is so dependent. A well-done installation is the foundation, but even getting that going is a challenge. So it's going to continue. It's pervasive. It is global. It doesn't get any better in other parts of the world either. Used to be a time when you could maybe relocate to and hire offshore and hire a small army to do your work, but the skill shortage is global. And so that's really what's driving it, long and short.
Excellent. And so, Guy, where do you see from a channel perspective, how are the MSSPs growing to align business requirements and digital transformation?
Well, the skill shortage is obviously a big influencer. We've repeated that a number of times throughout this conversation. And I think one of the ways that our partners are adjusting to that is that they're looking for managed services that they can take advantage of. And we've seen a really rapid rise in a number of companies that provide what they're calling MDR. And just like any acronym in cybersecurity, you really have to dig into that particular vendor's definition of MDR to understand what they're pitching. Managed detection and response as a category is something that can be delivered or fulfilled in a wide variety of manners and methodologies. And so one of the things that we're seeing successful partners doing is digging under the covers and getting as comprehensive a partner as possible, as comprehensive a solution as possible, and realizing that MDR is not the only thing that they need. It's not a comprehensive, all-encompassing solution. It's a piece of the puzzle. And what we're trying to do is empower our partners. As Ananth mentioned previously, is we definitely want to provide a managed detection and response experience, but we want to couple that with expertise and technology that allows us to predict and prevent those threats from happening before there's a breach, to hopefully eliminate the need for detection and response because the problem was alleviated before it became serious. And we're seeing that shift in our partners where they're interested in detection and response, but when they start looking under the covers, they realize that they can get fries with the Big Mac as well. So they're looking for the Happy Meal.
Always are looking for the Happy Meal. And so as we move in, we've heard a lot about the technology. We've heard about managed services. And I've yet to be in a webcast or involved in anything like this where someone doesn't inevitably ask the question, how much does that cost? So let's get to some of those cost items here. So Sarah, as folks get into spending for cybersecurity in 2021 and beyond, what are the technical teams asking for?
The biggest shift that was brought on by last year's changes were the move to cloud. Most companies, the quickest way for them to adapt was to resort to software as services from the cloud, whether it was an EDR solution, a VPN, or the router and the firewall that they sent home that could be managed from the cloud. So that was the biggest move. So what they're now asking for, as I said earlier, is to be able to integrate all of those into a central place and look at them, understand them. So they're looking for a SIM and a SOC who can now understand this new lay of the land. All of these new cloud services, the cloud products, they need to come in together in one place. And we need a SOC that can understand all of these new logs, new alerts, new triggers, and be able to make sense and identify any type of attack patterns. So that's the biggest ask, and that's going to be the challenge for the technical teams for this 2021.
All right. And Guy, we see a lot more investing in people, process, and technology. What are you seeing in terms of the channel and where they're focusing?
I think they're focusing in the same places that the end user is. Like we said before, technology, there are thousands of vendors. You can spend your money on tools till you're blue in the face, but all that does is create a swivel chair environment where you're having to monitor multiple screens and multiple technologies. And while it provides a sense of security that you've got multiple technologies working on your behalf, I think it in some ways provides a false sense of security, in that if you have too many places to look for an alert, you run the risk of missing an alert because you weren't looking at the right screen at the right time. And so, like Sarah said, we continue to get requests from partners to help consolidate technologies, to bring data into a single pane of glass, minimize the amount of screen time they have to jump between applications, and the fewer screens that they have to look at, the fewer people that they have to monitor those screens. And so I think there's an alignment between what Sarah's seeing with the technical teams, either within our SOC or within our customers, and what we're seeing in the channel with the requests from our channel partners and the managed service providers that are out there in the field delivering these services.
Yeah, I see it all kind of melding together. Everybody's investing in the same areas. Ananth, as we kind of close this out and we move towards questions and answers, before we get to those, can you kind of give us a recap of what happened in 2020, what you see coming in 2021, and where you think the vendors may be investing their services in the future?
Yeah, to go back to the beginning, 2020 obviously scattered, made everybody remote, so changed the network topology, and then pushed a lot of our investment into the cloud. In 2021, those themes will meld. There will be a hybrid return to work of some sort. It'll never really fully go back to the way it was. You can't put genies back in the bottle, And so, what are the imperatives for you as a user, as a network owner? Well, first, you don't want to waste a good crisis. You want to take advantage of the opportunity that the crisis has afforded you to rethink maybe cybersecurity, to go back and take advantage of the fact that the C-suite is listening to you. The other obvious thing is be agile, be mobile. Your employees are, your customers are, and so therefore your security protections must be as well. Now, we as vendors are investing in all of these things. So some of the things we introduced in 2020, for example, is a remote workforce threat detection dashboard, recognizing that there was a great emphasis on authentication, on identity, on VPN usage, which has become a really big thing, those kinds of things. Also, since the remote access has become very popular, we introduced some features around anomalous logon. Sure, you opened that door so that your employee could log on, but was that abused by a bad guy from China or Russia? How do you know that it wasn't? Is the capacity that you've assigned to your VPN sufficient? So there are a number of things around remote access that needs to be done. And then last but not the least, where we are investing is in being mobile, as I said. Was your vulnerability scan done at the office when your device was plugged in? Well, that's not going to work because you're not coming back in. David, you haven't been back since March 9th. That doesn't mean your machine is not vulnerable. It doesn't need to be scanned. So how can that be mobile is a question. So there's a greater focus on the endpoint, and that's where a lot of our investment is.
Yeah, with a bunch of kids at home on the same network, I'm sure the vulnerability is there. So thanks so much, Ananth. I appreciate it. Thanks to everybody, Sarah, Guy, and Ananth for all your insights. We do have a few questions that have come up. Legacy AV seemed to be a focus last year. What other technologies need to catch up in 2021?
Now, one that needs to catch up on is, I'll take a stab at it, and perhaps Ananth can add on to that, is multi-factor authentication. I do see, and we at our SOC does see this often, there is an increased implementation of multi-factor authentication, but at the same time, the adaptation is really still poor. It's there, turned off, not used, and it certainly does not make your life easy, but it does provide that second layer of protection that needs to be adapted sooner. So in addition to EDR, the MFA is one technology that needs to move forward this year.
On my side, what I'd say is that rethink your platform. It used to be that it was a desktop chained to your office desk, and you went there. Well, then it became a laptop, one that you could take around. But it turns out that maybe there's a tablet in your future. That is not something that we had typically seen in the enterprise much. I mean, Chromebook as a for instance, right? Chromebook was never a big deal in the enterprise. It was something that was there, but if you have a child going to school today, it's very likely that the Chromebook is their best friend, and that has had impact on the network. iPad OS, the Chromebooks, these kinds of changes in platform have become necessary. Employees now, users are thinking in terms of the desktop, of course, for the heavy duty work, but also a laptop for the travel, and then a Chromebook or a tablet of some sort for other things. Depending on your business, in one of our customers' cases, they've decided to equip their staff with Chromebooks because they'd rather have the employee be mobile to the customer than the other way around. I mean, this can happen even in a POS at the curb kind of environment, or the banking official coming to you where you're seated in order to prevent you from walking up to the teller. These kinds of scenarios are becoming more common. Certainly, it is happening significantly in doctors' offices, in home healthcare. These kinds of scenarios are seeing the rapid rise, and you're also seeing them in the retail space. So changes in platform technology are also coming.
Yeah, as someone with 4 kids, 16 and under, Chromebooks were prevalent throughout the house. So I certainly understand what you're saying there, Ananth. Did have a couple more questions. We have an MSP guy. So they're asking kind of what our partner program looks like. If you could give a kind of a brief overview of the partner program.
Sure. Our partner program is centered around managed service providers and managed security service providers. Our goal is to support our partner as our primary contact and to empower them to support their customers. And we've built our program and our pricing such that it's very predictable. Prices on a per device per month basis. And we offer discounts based upon volume. So the more devices you protect, the better your pricing gets. We offer 4 different levels of service to our partners, depending upon their requirements and their capabilities. And we also have built in some incentives in our program that allow for easy access to proof of concept licenses, to internal use licenses to protect their own infrastructure. We offer marketing support and assistance, training and enablement. So it's as comprehensive as we can make it.
Excellent, thank you. Ananth or Sarah, there's a question about where our solution's hosted and where the data is retained, or is our solution hosted and where's the data retained? I'm sorry.
So our solution can be hosted. It can be on the customer premise if that is their preference. If it is hosted by us, then it's hosted in the United States.
Okay. A question came in. How many levels of service do you offer?
Well, the service levels that we offer depend on your need. And so everything that we offer has a 24/7 component. So if you have a priority 1 alert, regardless of the service level that you've selected, you will be notified 24/7 via our SOC. Now, beyond that, it's a question of what do you think your exposure is and what is it that you're looking for. If you're looking for mostly self-serve, then in addition to the 24/7 notification on priority 1 alerts, we'll enable a portal that allows you to self-serve and automatically generate reports for compliance, for security. And of course, you can look at our attack dashboard for your assets there as well and draw your conclusions. That's on one end of the offering spectrum. On the other end, you get the full white glove where we're doing most of the heavy lifting. We're looking at the console, we're performing the threat hunting. On a shift basis, we are providing you with updates as to what happened. We're taking your ad hoc queries. And in between those 2 polar extremes, there are a couple of other service levels as well. It's a question of what's right for you, not a generic question of what's right or wrong. Please come by the website or the partner program, and I'd be happy to describe it in greater detail.
That's great. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much to Ananth, Guy, and Saraswathi for all the insight and information you shared today. Certainly gave us a lot to think about, a lot to look forward to in 2021 as we learned from 2020. So thank you to all of our attendees. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks all.